afternoon, everybody. Y'all ready to roll? Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go through the standard slides that you guys have seen. So is anyone from NAPCO here? Well, let's thank NAPCO in their absence for sponsoring this session. Course materials, they'll be available on the app after the session. Antitrust, I'm sure all of you have read this. And meet the speakers. You'll see one face that's not here today, and that's Jason. I'll let you introduce yourself versus. But let's start over there on the left. We're not in the same order as what's on the screen, but that's okay. Mike, if you would introduce yourself, and then Tim, and then Jason.
Oh, hi everybody. Thanks for coming. All six of us. I feel like we should circle up the tables. I'm Mike Williams. I'm the Director of Client Technologies. Everybody asks what that means. It's my job to make what we do for customers amazing, make them deliriously happy that they chose us. So what that means in the real world is making sure they're using all of the technology they've already bought, that they're fully aware of things that we could be tacking on, and making it matter for them. So that's what I do. We have application specialists that kind of drive that down into the field, but that's us. Security Pros is a commercial only contractor. We are headquartered, what, about 6 miles from here, across the river, and we have another office up in Indianapolis that I'm out of. So, and we do stuff commercially, regionally, and well, I guess we have worldwide customers too, but that's us.
Thanks, Mike. Tim?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim McHugh. I'm the Director of Business Development for Integrated Protection Services. We're based in Cincinnati. We also have branches in Columbus and Lexington, and then a national account operation that operates on a virtual basis. My job is to try to find products and services that add value to our customers, and then coach the sales team up on how to sell them, how it makes their life better, simpler, and so on. And I was probably in your seats in a session like this, going back about 2 years ago. Got my eyes opened wide up on cloud-based access control, and it's something that we've moved forward very aggressively with in the last couple of years. So happy to share our experiences and go from there.
Jason.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Jason Mossbarger with Linnell S2. We're the #1 access control manufacturer in the world. Recently acquired by Honeywell as of like 2 days ago. So Monday was my first day there at Honeywell. And I am the regional sales manager for Ohio and Kentucky. Cover 2 states. I've been in the security industry for about 25 years, working for various other manufacturers, but here to share with you what we're doing with cloud access.
And Jason is we need to thank Jason because you'll see his face isn't up there. Brian had a family situation and he had to stay at home. By the way, I follow up with Brian. Everything's good since Tuesday. But Jason kind of got the nudge yesterday, and he wasn't planning to be here today, and so thank you for that.
Sure.
And also, let's set our expectations for Jason's preparation and the level of answers that he'll give, so that takes all the pressure off of you.
All right.
All right, in this session we have 4 objectives. So y'all have seen the 4 objectives, or you wouldn't have signed up and come here. What I want to share with you, though, we're not going to go down and ask a question for each of these, right? We're going to meet these objectives by asking a variety of questions and sparking a dialogue. And if we can get you involved in that dialogue, that would be fantastic. But by the end of this, we hope that the fundamental principles of cloud access are sent. How it can streamline operations, how you can use the remote capabilities of it, and then how to structure the pricing. Of cloud access. We hope you walk away with those things, but we're not just going to say, hey, we're going to ask other questions where those answers to these objectives are going to come in. Cool. All right. Before we jump in, if you would go to your computer, or you don't need your computer. Go to your phone if you have your phone. If you got your laptop, you can use your laptop here. Go to slido.com, and when you go there, there's a number. It's going to ask you for an event number, I believe it is. That number is 117-3154. And the reason we're asking you to answer this question is because we want to understand what your level of experience, and we want to understand what you want to learn. So let's take a few minutes and do this survey, please. We have 15 of you. We have 8 that have answered. We're going to stay here till Sunday. Let's get a few more. 10 of you have answered. I'm feeling good too about this. 12 of you have answered. Let's move forward. I think you guys are looking at the answers. We've got the information that we need. So this is good. We're going to be able to skip some and move into some, I don't want to call them advanced questions. They're not advanced questions, but we're also not going to invest time on what is cloud access control, because it's pretty obvious that you guys know that. All right. So we're going to start with talking about the end user experience. And the way we're going to position this, I don't want you to think about, when we ask about benefits of access control, we're not talking about access control in general. When we're talking about value propositions, when we're talking about benefits, things of that nature, in this session, we're talking about cloud access control versus a traditional on-prem system. Does that make sense? So obviously, safety and security is a benefit of cloud access. Well, it's a benefit of on-prem as well. This is all about the benefits and the differentiators of cloud-based access control versus on-prem access control. Oh, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. You're probably wondering who the heck's talking to.
I was going to ask who you were.
Yeah, my name is Chris Peterson. I am the founder and president of a company called Vector Firm. Vector Firm is a sales and sales management training and consulting firm, and we focus on system integration companies. And we've been in business for 14 years, and we have a specialty in helping integrators move from being an on-prem, traditional, project-based integrator to shifting into becoming more of a services business. And hence, that's why I'm up here. All right. So 1 or 2 end user benefits of cloud access control versus an on-prem system. Tim, you're right in the middle. I'll start with you, since you weren't expecting it, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. At our organization, we talk about being smarter, faster, better. And to start with smarter, we often equate with it's serverless technology. And gosh, if you have to manage a server for any extended period of time, that can be a lot of headaches for an end user, right? You get into the game of, well, we have to modernize the server's SQL, the server's operating system, and then we've got to update the on-prems software, and you got to get this just battle of trying to make sure that everything lines up and works properly. You get out of that when you get into a cloud-based situation. And we know it's a great relief to many of our customers. We no longer have to worry about an on-premise server. And then I think another one, we talk about faster. When the updates are available from the original equipment manufacturer, from the service provider, they're available, right? We don't have to do this once a year, twice a year on a quarterly basis where tech goes out and modernizes the system. It's available as soon as they put it into production. And just like, if you use an app for whatever these days on your phone and the company puts an update out, it's available to you.
Very good. Thanks, Tim. Mike?
The one we lead with nowadays is maybe one that not a lot of customers have implemented, at least a lot of ours hadn't until we kind of led them to that water, was a cloud system is more easily tied to all the other systems that your customer is already using. So specifically the HR system. If you've ever sat there entering users to get cards assigned to them so that the system will work by the time your implementation is done, you felt that pain. So we did a very large implementation for a customer, had multiple sites and a lot of employees, and we worked with their IT company before we ever even bought the equipment to install. And because it's a cloud-based system, we can give them logins, tie it to their HR system. It's already done. I wouldn't say it's trivial. It takes a little bit of planning and forethought and partnership with the IT department, which you should have anyway. But they were already in there. So we're dealing with a different person in their organization. It's our main customer. She's responsible for this migration from their on-prem system to this. And she's asking me, okay, we're about to start the first install. Their old system is going to work in the morning, and they're going to be on the new system, and it's going to work by the time you leave. And I said, yep. And she's like, well, we've had a bunch of people come and go out of that office since we started this whole process. I'm like, it's already done. Like, how do you know it's already done? Because it's tied to your HR system. Did you put them in your HR system? Yes, it's already done. They're already in there. So that's powerful and fairly simple to do with a cloud system. I'm sure it's possible with an on-prem system, but
Yeah.
a lot more involved. So
That's a good point. Before we move on to further answers, a lot of the things that y'all bring up are probably possible by on-prem, but
Right.
So thing to think about is it easier? Does it enable the integrator? Does the cloud enable the integrator to do some of these things easier?
The HR system's probably cloud-based.
yes, so it was. Yeah,
So it's cloud-based, so it's cloud talking to
Understood.
cloud,
Yeah.
which just from a technology standpoint makes life a lot easier, like Mike was saying. And we don't have to have a cloud-based system trying to get down through a firewall onto a server with a traditional on-prem. It just makes life a lot easier.
Jason, from your standpoint at Linnell,
Yeah, I would also add that what we're not used to with on-prem is accessing the software from anywhere, right? And so you have more accessibility using a phone, using your laptop without having a client software application loaded on it because you're accessing the cloud. So you're using a browser. So it gives you a lot more functionality to where from this table, I could let Chris into his office, from my phone, unlock the door. The other thing would be, peace of mind for the end user, knowing that their system's automatically databases backed up in the cloud, and they have redundancy where right now you probably just have one PC, one server with an on-prem system. If that server goes down, that software goes down, your system's down. So there's redundancy built into the cloud and having that peace of mind.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
So, and by the way, guys, if you see me over here doing a selfie, that's what I'm doing. So my marketing person will kill me if I don't take a picture. So, okay, our next question. Well, before we go to the next question, anything out there you're like, you didn't say this?
Yes. What did we miss?
You guys are so awesome.
Keep talking. All right, wonderful. So we all know system integrators want to increase their recurring revenue. We know ownership wants to increase the valuation, and everyone in the organization should probably want to increase the valuation because it impacts positively. But so let's forget about that for a second. Those two things, because a lot of people sometimes when we work with organizations, they're like, I don't want to make all this change. I've been doing this forever, and the owner just wants to increase the value and increase the recurring revenue for them. Okay. What else is there? What other benefits do integrators get by selling cloud-based access control versus on-prem system? And Mike, you guys, I don't want to, I think y'all are exclusively cloud, are you not?
Yeah.
So you know this in your sleep.
And I did stay out late last night, so I figured I might have to actually do it in my sleep. All right, well, if you don't want me to go on forever, let me pick one. Maybe you don't think about that often, but I mean, we are tradespeople, right? You look us up in AIA, we have a number and everything. So a lot of trade businesses on January 1st or whenever their fiscal year starts are looking at a year wondering if they're going to be profitable, right? How many jobs am I going to get this year? They're counting on a one-time project. And it might be really lucrative and it might be really big, and traditionally we do fine, but you really don't know on January 1st. If you have a subscription model, which cloud drives you toward, I mean, we look at our pro forma financials for an upcoming year and say, okay, we're gonna make at least this much profit this year if we do nothing. If we send all the salespeople home, we already know we're gonna be profitable this year. That's powerful. I can tell you the bank loves it. So I think that, to me, that's the number one benefit to you as an integrator for migrating really anything you do. If you can find a way to make yourself a service model and get people talking and thinking in terms of subscriptions, you get to have a much easier time on January 1st.
Jason, when y'all are working with integrators and they may be hesitant,
Yeah.
what are some of the things you share with them? Like, here's why you need to consider this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that, if you're not talking to your customers about cloud now, somebody else is, right? And so the customer might not be ready today, but when they are, they'll know that you're ready for them to get them into the cloud experience. I would also say that I just took a cloud economics course, and one of the interesting things about that course was that the biggest benefit back to the customer is not the ROI or total cost of ownership, but it's the actual staff productivity. So it's an increase in staff productivity because they don't have IT resources that are constantly maintaining their access control system. If there's security vulnerabilities or if there's software updates or things like that, systems down. I mean, they got a lot of time invested into it. When it's in the cloud, let the experts handle it.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. And the thing, what was your first one? Oh, one of the things we share with our clients all the time is one day, I don't know when, it could be tomorrow, it could be 3 years from now, every one of your end user customers, every one of them, someday, even the government agencies, someone's going to say in there, why don't we just put this in the cloud? When one person in that organization says that, if they're not thinking of you, you haven't done your job. So envision that. So that was a great point. Someone else is. Tim, you guys are making that shift and you're doing it pretty well, from what I can tell. So why? What's the value to you?
One benefit I don't think we saw coming, but we've really reaped it. We've had good success. We've been very fortunate. We've grown pretty rapidly in the last 3-4 years. And that's created opportunities for some of our top technicians to move into project management roles. Unfortunately, we've lost some of that good talent to other organizations. So it's created a little bit of a vacuum in terms of the front line for our technicians. And what we've come to realize is gosh, some of those guys, I call them the unicorns, right? Because they could do the IT piece, they could do the software piece, they could do the access control program piece. Maybe those guys are in a different role. We've got people who don't have all those skill sets. Going cloud-based takes a little bit of that away, because if you think about it, the software is written by somebody else. It's managed by another enterprise on their server with an army of software engineers somewhere else. So they're ironing out those wrinkles. They're fixing those bugs. And we can coach up frontline talent new to the organization, new to the industry, to really what might be happening local, right? So yes, there might still be a problem with the controller and it communicating, but that's simplifying things. There might be a problem with the controller to the door and some interaction between the locking hardware. That's just simplifying things. So we've found that it's made life a lot easier on our tech departments. And we had an install manager that was kicking and screaming, with our adopting cloud, because yet another thing that we needed to manage and take care of. But he's become the biggest star-graving fan of it because it's simplified life for us on the back end dramatically.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything y'all have experienced or any benefits to the, yes, please.
Because now somebody calls up and they say, hey, my key fob's not working, my big phone's not working, this is not working, something's going wrong. They said, find a technician, roll in the van there, figure it out. We're logging in, we're saying, hey, actually, you're using the wrong encode, or, oh, we see that, you've lost connectivity, and we can kind of diagnose it, and in most cases, fix the issue, without having to actually send somebody there and spend the time and have the big on-site service.
Yeah.
So it saves our clients in the end having to pay to have our technicians on site.
Yeah.
We can just say, hey, here's a little IT, a little in-house help for you. A lot of times we don't even charge for it because it's a 5-minute.
Yeah.
And they love that, and we love that.
The amount that van roll or truck roll eats away at the bottom line is so, you can't see it, but it does quite a bit. So that's a great benefit to y'all. Anything else?
I had some thoughts. I know everybody here's on more on the ownership management side, on the sales side of it. But we started selling strictly cloud-based access, along with other access systems. As soon as you call something cloud-based, you don't have to spend hours, well, not hours, but lots of time explaining the benefits, why you have to pay a monthly service. Well, 10 years ago, I just bought it, threw it in, and it worked. So selling RMR is so much easier to close this cloud.
Because you use the word cloud.
Absolutely.
I've never heard that. That's a
been my
great,
experience.
yeah,
Also have a
I can imagine that, yeah. I never thought about that.
We host an Entrepreneur server as well, and I've started calling that cloud-based, technically it is, it's made it easier to sell that as well. It's calling cloud-based, what a difference.
How often would you say that clients are afraid of the cloud?
Oh, afraid of cloud? I haven't experienced that actually.
I get that from time to time.
Where do you
I
live?
probably heard.
Where do you work? Where do you live?
Security one, we're in Windsor, Ontario.
You're not, okay. Yeah, it's somewhat of a technical, more progressive area, Ontario.
That's really great to hear because it was the exact opposite when
Yes,
When
we
people
actually
first
find
got this
that
idea.
when we actually get involved with the IT departments are very territorial. I actually came from one, that was my background. And when you start talking, moving to the cloud, that means you're taking something from them. So we have to overcome that argument. We can get it from management, oh yeah, let's do this. But the minute we talk to the IT department, it's like, no, that's mine.
Have you seen that reduced over the years though? Like, because 10 years ago, that was absolutely all
It
the
just
time.
depends on the age of the IT department. I mean, honest to God, if you've got a bunch of Cisco guys that grew up, in the old Cisco realm and so forth, no, they're strictly hardware. They want that hardware, they want to feel it, they want to touch it. When you get newer guys who grew up in cloud, grew up this iPhone, then they're not quite as bad.
Yeah, that's good input. Meaning the last part as far as the difference in the ages and the backgrounds, because
Yeah, if they're my age, then we want the hardware in our hands.
I didn't say that. But we've seen, we've heard this story multiple times where an IT person gets brought into a meeting and the security manager, facilities manager starts explaining it, and within 10 seconds, the IT manager says, "It's in the cloud? Okay, it's cool." And immediately, that's fine. And now that's not all the time, but 10 years ago, that didn't happen. Now we're starting to see a great majority of them do it.
And the latest thing we had an argument about was the fact that one of these companies actually got bit by being in the cloud and being on Azure, and it wasn't secure. So there was a whole different story there and a whole different thing to work out.
Yeah.
But, they've been bit by it, so they were leery.
Yeah. Yes, please.
One other thing that works for us too, the cloud base, obviously IT loves that. Layman serves software management and everything, instead of saying, oh, we've got this encryption, whatever, it's the cloud, it's got bank level encryption, it's simple, as you said, many less questions, everybody understands it, gives them the warm and fuzzies.
Right. You're able to whip off a version and it's Amazon, whatever, and they're cool with it. Good. Okay, let's, thanks for that input, by the way. This is my favorite question. How can an enterprise account or a large end user benefit from cloud-based access control versus an on-prem system? We've been told for years this is great for small businesses, right? So what's the value to an enterprise account or a large end user? Jason, if you don't mind, I want to start with you.
Sure.
You guys are built on these types of accounts.
Right, yeah, Mark. So yeah, I would say typically when you're thinking about larger customers, they have multiple sites, right? And when you have multiple sites in a headquarters, you have to build in redundancy. You have to build in high availability. And when you're building in that redundancy and high availability, and there's a network issue, there's a power outage, whatever it might be, and all the other sites need to connect back to headquarters. If headquarters is offline, the other sites are all offline too. So all that redundancy that you build in there, which by the way is, a very high cost expense and ongoing costs. So with the cloud redundancy, I mean, it's always on, right? And so if I have a network issue at one site, then that site's affected, but all my other sites can still connect.
Tim?
Yeah, I think, when you get an enterprise operations or opportunities, scale, right? That's one of the words that should pop in everybody's mind. These things scale up and everything multiplies. So the number of transactions that take place, and as Mike talked about, right? The integrations with HR software, how important it is for an organization to get immediate access. And on the flip side, if you have somebody leave the company, how important is it for that to be shut off immediately? And oftentimes in larger entities, those stakes rise up. So I think from the integrations perspective, that can be extremely important from an enterprise operation. And just that single pane of glass, right? You can log in and I can see Louisville, or I can see Indianapolis, or I can see Omaha, wherever that may be. Ease of use, if you've got multiple administrators, it can be easier to kind of parse it out that Mike's responsible for these sites and Jason's responsible for these sites. It just seems to get back to that ease of use, benefit from it.
Great. And Mike?
Yeah, I take that a little further too. When you get into an enterprise situation, you have multiple departments that have to interact with this thing, right? You got the individual people on the ground site by site who need to be responsible for what's going on there. And hey, if a door lock breaks, they're the ones who call. But then you've got the HR department that is responsible for getting people in and out. You've probably got a corporate security guy who wants to know everything about how everything works. I mean, they're going to divide up the different touches for your system among multiple different departments. If you haven't noticed, HR people tend to be a little bit different breed. Sorry, mine's here today, so I have to watch what I say.
This is being recorded.
Yes. You're going to play it back forever. But I mean, they have different personalities and think different ways. And if you had to sell to them, you'd have to sell to them differently. If all these things are accessible and kind of easily done, I guess that's my biggest thing more than anything else, this versus that. Well, if it's easier, people will do it, right? Yeah. So in an on-prem system, you can do a lot of these same things, but it's harder. If you make it harder, people are less likely to do it. Like, we fought forever trying to get people in HR to put cards into the system and take cards out of the system. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. It's like, I don't understand it. I have to open up the software that I never see. A cloud-based system is obviously the web, the interface is a web interface. It's more used to what they're used to seeing when they go on the web, right? It's not, oh, let's pull down menus or I got to find this or that feature. It's like, oh, I log in, it's a website. I already understand what I'm looking at, even if I haven't had a ton of training. So keeping the various departments happy and dealt with is so much easier on a cloud system.
Yeah.
I think from the technical mindset, which is a lot of us in this room, you really have to educate yourself on what an HR person's needs are. So if you have an HR team, maybe schedule some time to meet with them to see where their pain points are. Start to be able to think like them, because there's so many times where even me and Mike have gotten together, what are you thinking? I'm like, this is exactly what I need. And have them show you the onboarding process that they have to go through. It's really, really long and extensive, and it takes a ton of time. Make their lives easier, and it's truly the easiest sell that they'll fight for it.
They'll fight. Yep. So, and I would expand that to other departments such as IT, right, and get them involved. But one of the things before we jump off of this that I want to share is mindset of your salespeople, or perhaps if you are a salesperson, your mindset. When it comes to selling cloud to enterprise clients. And I don't have it here, but I'll show a slide of a family of 8, 6 kids and the parents. The parents are like 29 years old. And the father looks absolutely miserable. And I asked the question, they just bought a house and they had to get a mortgage. Why did they have to get a mortgage? And everyone answers that question really easily. Well, they don't have the cash to buy a house. They need to keep all the cash they have for the next 20 years of expenses, all this good stuff, right? And it all comes down to that's what they need. They need a mortgage. And then I show a picture of a small business owner who's just frustrated with, in front of a computer, holding his head. And I ask, why does this small business owner need a hosted or a cloud-based access control system? And everyone says, instead of an on-prem system, everyone says, well, he doesn't have the resources, he doesn't have the space for a server, doesn't have the capital to buy the equipment, all these things that company needs, right? Just like the young family that needs a mortgage. And that's the mindset that we all have. They need it, we're going to sell it to them. And then I put up another slide that just has a question like this. And it asks, Why does Mark Zuckerberg, Beyonce, and Elon Musk have mortgages? Because they all do. Do they need mortgages? And everyone starts answering, well, they can use their cash elsewhere, it's a tax break, they blah, blah, all these other things, right? All these reasons. But do they need it? No, they don't need it. They could take $35 million from the interest they made on Tuesday and pay for their house and their vacation house in France. They don't need it. But they are in a better position. They are in a better situation because they took out a mortgage. These enterprise accounts do not need cloud access control. They do not need you to host things for them. They do not need you to manage things for them. They can do it on their own. But should they? That's the question your salespeople need to be asking. When they come back and say, well, I didn't present the cloud because they don't need it. They've got an IT staff. They've got 1 million servers in the base. Okay, they don't need it. They can do this on their own, but should they? Have you gone through that conversation? And to me, all these benefits that we talk about are fantastic, but if the mindset of the salesperson isn't changed, then they're going to avoid, and by the way, there is so much business to win in the cloud and in the enterprise sector, so much, because no one's touching it. Everyone's going after the Subway sub shop down the road. Cool? All right. So, and I didn't tell you all this, but I was looking over these this morning, and on this question, with all the great benefits, why aren't integrators selling more of it? I'm going to add to that, if you don't mind. What can they do to sell more of it? Okay. So not just why are they not. So, and Jason, I'll end with you because you're the manufacturer, and I'm going to start with Tim because you struggled, not you, but making that shift. There's some struggle, right? So you experienced some. What do you think?
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. We started doing this. We had a little bit of success, but we knew we were kind of lagging behind what we needed to do, and so there wasn't one magic thing that we did. There's probably multiple things that we implemented. One of the big things was making sure we got 2 very critical people inside of our organization on board behind it. One was a president, wanted to make sure that he was very much a proponent of it. And the second was CFO. And once he started seeing the economic value of it, like he really lit up, and the 2 of them endorsed it. So we had a lot more success once they put their blessing on it. I sat in a presentation again a couple years ago. Chris led it, and Chris said something to the effect, if you've got 10 salespeople, my best guess is you're going to have 1, maybe 2 that are really interested in adopting this. And I kind of sat back and said, no, we got 10 good reps, and they'll be on board, right? They're going to be all in with this. He was absolutely positively right. We had a couple guys that loved selling RMR. We tweaked our compensation plan a few years ago, and RMR became very fruitful for them. We had a guy that just loved selling new stuff. That's just the way he's wired. And the rest of them took a lot more coaxing to get on board with it, because we had to talk about the kind of questions we've talked about in this session so far and convince them of it. And success starts breeding success, right? So as they started seeing the others having some success with it, they started adopting it as well. And then I think I'll just kind of toot my own horn a little bit. You got to have somebody like me, right? That's the center point of it. They can explain it. They can talk to the techs about it. They can talk to the install managers about it. They can talk to the salespeople about it, and then can help them promote the value of it, write the proposal on it, track the RMR on it. That was a pretty important role. I think that's been kind of key to our success.
Great, thanks, Tim. And Mike, I'm curious, do you even have an answer to this? Because it's like asking a fish how wet it is. Like, you don't know anything else, right?
No, I don't know anything else. I didn't come up in the industry selling on.
I don't mean, that's not bad. You're dumb. You don't know anything else with it. No, but I mean, all you do is cloud, right?
That is true. But that isn't to say that all of our salespeople are super good at it. And to the extent that they're not, and we need to correct things, it might be something as simple as they're just fumbling over the words, right? If they're delivering a proposal and they say, yeah, and here's the install cost and here's the monthly fee. Wrong. Nobody wants to pay a monthly fee, right? Here's the subscription for all the cloud services that we are going to be providing. Like, that it sounds I don't know, maybe it sounds silly, but I can tell you it has worked. It has made a big difference in new reps that we're bringing on that are from the industry and kind of speak the way we all kind of came up learning to speak. And we shift a couple of little things like that, just in how they present it and how they propose it and the words that they use. We put the words on our proposals, so all they have to do is read them. And you can see the needle start to move. So I think making sure they understand it, and believe it or not, even though we don't do on-prem, our reps need to be versed in the competition, right?
Yeah.
So like, hey, I don't know, this other proposal, it doesn't have any monthly subscription, even if we've trained the customer to use our verbiage. Like, what about that? Like, tell me about that. So they have to start going into all the things we've been talking about, like what is the benefit to the customer and so on. I think that matters. You got to make that shift too.
Very good. What do you see, Jason, working with these folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, if it was easy, we'd all be doing it and we wouldn't even have this class. But, you know, our company is also going through a transition, right? We're the #1 access control manufacturer in the world, and we're trying to shift into cloud. And it's not just as we've got a product, it's not just as easy as throwing it into my lap saying, hey, here's another product to sell. So we have to change our model too, and changing our model means, you know, we got to have new compensation plans and incentives because they're not used to paying us on RMR. They're used to paying us on a one-time sale for on-prem systems. We got to change our marketing, update our marketing information. We got to update contracts with our VARs. So there's a lot of change that we have to go through. And, you know, with all that stuff, you know, at the end of the day, it really comes down to, you know, people are overthinking it, you know, and they're thinking through all these different processes on how to make it all happen. And it's like, you know, at some point we just got to dive in. We got to dive in and otherwise we're gonna get left behind. And the rest of our competitors are gonna have solutions and we're not gonna be in the cloud. And then also, you know, our CEO had said that, you know, cloud it's coming, right? And so over the next 3 to 5 years, every business system that the end user owns is gonna be in the cloud. And so we've got like 80,000 end user customers out there. We need to migrate all those customers into the cloud.
Great, thanks, guys. So the thing that we're in different conference rooms all the time with system integrators, and the #1 thing that we see that I don't want to say that leads to salespeople not selling it. I'll answer that too. The thing that leads them not selling it is the fact that they don't have to. And I know it sounds crazy. It's like, okay, well, get a great compensation plan for them and they're going to follow the money. No, you're thinking very 1995. A lot of salespeople today would rather make $1,000 commission on something they're comfortable with than engage in any conflict and make $2,000. It's just generational thing. It's a different world today. So the main reason they don't is because they don't have to. They can sell the traditional systems. We're in a market that's booming. They're going to make their number. They're going to pay their mortgage, and they don't have to deal with conflict changing and having their customer change. The thing that I've seen, the #1 factor of any organization making this shift is leadership buy-in. Because if one of your salespeople is in front of a customer on a Wednesday and they know they should bring up cloud, but they know that I'm going to move forward with the on-prem system, I don't want to cause any conflict, I'll be paid more on cloud. It's not going to matter. If they know they're going to get the deal on-prem and it's not going to cause any conflict, they're going to move forward with that and they make listen. But if they know you're going to ask them about it, you're going to hold them accountable to it, they will change their behavior and they will, okay, and they'll bring it up. So what I have seen, and this has surprised me, doing this 12 years now, surprised me the first 3 or 4 years. In fact, I can't be. It's leadership buy-in and holding salespeople accountable to it. Anything else before we go to the next? Mike, this is all you, this next question. How does cloud-based access control impact the HR department? Because when we were prepping for this, I was really, I don't say amazed, that's a bit too strong of a word, but I was surprised by how much it does, right? From what you were saying. So I'd love for you to share some of these things with.
Well, if I could tack on a little bit to what I was already talking about. So number one, it ties in with their systems. Number two, what Chelsea was pointing out, they immediately get it when you make their lives easier, right? They've already got, somebody was just hired, I got this whole list of things to do. If you can just say, hey, yeah, you can cross this one off and you can cross this one off, we got that. They love that. One of the biggest worries in an HR department is when people are terminated, right? Or terminate or leave or separate for whatever reason, they know that they're the ones that are going to get pointed at when their key fob still works, right? And we didn't get their company laptop back. And, oh yeah, somebody gave them a cell phone years ago that they never used, right? And they're still in this system, and they still have a Teams login, or they still have a login to this system, that system, the other. And this happens at every company. If you've never seen it, just ask around, and it'll be true that, hey, this employee that separated from us a year and a half ago still has access to our email, right? Or something. And it happens all the time. And if you get a bunch of HR people in the room, they're going to commiserate about it and say, how do you handle this? And it's just nice to be able to go to a department and say, I got you on this. Like, don't worry about this anymore. At least not for our system. Like your other systems, maybe we'll get into those businesses someday. Until then, you may have to wrestle with them, but you're never going to have to wrestle with us. That's a big relief to them. And just, I mentioned earlier, handing out fobs, if you're still using those kinds of credentials, that's another conversation you can have with them. Like, it's not part of our session, but the technology is moving just away from physical credentials, right? So if you can be the change agent for them to move off of that and take one more hassle off their plate, they're going to love you. And it doesn't hurt to have an entire department advocating, well, I really want to go this system. Like, we've been evaluated against a bunch of other stuff and we're in the fight for it. Like, you got to convince a whole bunch of different departments of it. Like, we got them locked down. All right. So now let's work on the IT department. Let's work on various other things.
Have anybody in the audience had experience presenting the benefits to the HR department, or any of these discussions that maybe something was missed? What you guys, anything to add to that?
Well, I would say this is actually an area for us to get better at.
Right.
I think being very, truthful and open, our guys are really good at selling doors, right? Selling access on doors. And we don't care whether you're a bakery or you're, a major financial institution. We've always been pretty good at that. I think we started with it. I think our first deal was a couple doors, right? Probably like a lot of people in the audience, or that's your comfort zone, right? How bad can you screw it up, right? If it's just a couple doors or something like that. But then you get confidence, right? 2 doors turns into 6, and 6 turns into 15, and it keeps growing and growing. Our average install's north of 12, right? And keep in mind, there's onesie twosies out there, and there's ones that have dozens out there. But I think we can continue to get better at having the conversation with the HR people, because there's so much value. And the more I learn, there's more to learn. And this is just a kind of key area to it. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. So how does cloud-based access control impact system integrators, installations, and operations departments? And this is good and bad. If there are negative things versus an on-prem system, let us know. So, Mike, you just got Tim. Why don't you take this first?
I mentioned this earlier. It takes a little bit of the heavy lift off of the install manager, because we're connecting readers to controllers, and then controllers online to the cloud. And so we're not having to, maybe step in and be the customer's IT department, because we found ourselves that's what we become oftentimes, right? We had to be the guys that knew how to modernize your server and update it so that the on-prem software could run properly on it. It's made life a lot easier. The skill set's gotten narrow in that regard from our install departments. We, by the way, have had pretty good success keeping our margins on the install piece, though. Sometimes I even talk to reps a little bit about strategically, like, hey, maybe if you go with a little tighter margin on the install, right? Reminder, we've got the RMR piece out here, just thinking strategically. A lot of our reps don't think that way. They see install commission coming off of it, and God bless them, they've been able to maintain the type of margins that we've been looking for there.
Great. Mike?
Well, that's a plus. We haven't really talked about any of the potential pitfalls. We should probably kick around that a little bit. So it does impact your installation department in that if they go to do an install and the internet isn't up yet, can't finish the install, or at least it's very difficult to finish the install. So you don't have that problem with an on-prem system, right? It's self-contained. I'm there front to back. But if it's a cloud system, I need my control panel talking to the cloud, and new construction or somebody just moving into a new space, right? Could be as simple as a one-door installation, and if their internet isn't up yet, I can't get fully done.
Sounds like you learned that the hard way.
Yeah, we planned for that. By the way we solve that is all of our technicians have the the personal hotspot feature enabled on their phones, so they can be their own internet as long as there's cell coverage, which if there isn't internet or cell coverage, well, now we're returning. So plan well ahead for that. You know, your coordination staff needs to be fully aware of that, and customers don't always tell the truth. Like, hey, is the internet going to be up when we come on Friday? Oh, absolutely. You know, and they don't tell us that AT&T called them to push back.
It's a great
So do be ready for that part. I would just completely agree that it is a lot easier to find technicians that don't have to be the jack of all these trades, don't have to stand up a server and things like that. I would say one other thing, it definitely fits with this question. Was anybody in the cybersecurity talk yesterday? Yeah, I didn't want to go to it either, but it was riveting. And I think it was the best thing we've ever seen. And here's why it impacts us on this topic. Deanne was an integrator out in California. She's since sold out to the big boys, but a couple of years ago, they got hacked. What are they called? The ransomware guys out of Russia hacked into their systems. Her husband was the IT guy, like read this thing, ransom note, fell to the floor. I mean, it was bad. And I keep thinking about what servers are we responsible for out there? And this kind of jumped to mind is like, okay, if we have, I mean, we don't in access control, but we do in other technologies. And like, what if this was to happen to us? How do you mediate it? I mean, the bottom line in how you work through all that was, I got to move everything into the cloud. Their email was on a server in their office, right? So for example, would apply to an access control server as well. But they locked all that down, inaccessible. Data can't be touched unless you pay, and it was 7 figures she ended up paying to get this data released. I mean, it was chilling. But the first thing she had to do for them to even operate before they got their data back was she's like, okay, we immediately migrated all our emails into the cloud, and now that's handled. And I'm like, wow, like makes me really glad. The more systems that we are able to migrate into the cloud, that is, I'm not saying it's not possible for Russian hackers to get into those systems, but it's somebody else's problem. In my case, it's Prevo's problem. You got to figure that out, right? As we start moving to more cloud video type systems and getting rid of on-site servers for that, like, great, that's taken care of. So
Jason, Brian talks about this a lot as far as an integrator, the amount that cloud, how expensive it is for an integrator to continue to manage on the operations side, you know, on an ongoing basis in an on-prem system. Right. From the van rolls, right, and everything that comes with them. Anything that the folks missed from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's all encompassing what they had said. Maybe from a remote standpoint, you know, you can remotely program your systems, given that the internet's up, and remotely troubleshoot systems without having to roll trucks out there. So If there's a vulnerability that's system-wide, your one technician remotely from the office can download firmware to the customer's controllers in site, so.
I just want to add one thing, and this is part of the conversation, but I come from the operations side of it, so
Yeah.
Obviously reduced truck rolls, all that. The technicians love it. They love it if they can sit at their computer and not have to drive an hour somewhere, and I truly believe happy people do better work. Just a little side note, all of our technicians love it when they don't have to do a service call, and then we will bust them up about taking 5 extra minutes on their coffee
Yeah.
break, whatever, but keeps the people in the organization happy as well.
And were you around, was your company around, let's say 10 years ago and doing on-prem stuff?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you've made that, so you've made that shift then? Okay, awesome. That's a good perspective. Anything else, folks, that we might have missed? All right, 2 more questions. What are some of the best ways an integrator can structure their pricing of cloud-based access control? And I was going to start with Jason, but you might just, since you work with so many integrators, but your answer might just, might make theirs, moot.
Yeah.
So I want to
Sure.
go down here.
Sure.
And who should I start with? Mike, let's start with you, because you're dedicated to one group, right?
Right. We get this question a lot, and I know hopefully everybody read the antitrust stuff, so I can't talk about specific dollars and cents, but we can talk about percentages. So I would tell you, don't be afraid to try for a 50% gross margin on this. So the cloud company charges you your monthly subscription. 2xing that is a doable thing. And I would tell you this, we haven't lost very many deals because our subscription fee was a couple of bucks too high. Really doesn't happen. They look at the total dollars in this, and of course, like everybody else, nobody has limitless resources. But if it's, X number of dollars a door versus a couple of bucks more, really isn't going to win or lose you a deal, right? Dropping that price isn't going to win it for you. Raising it isn't going to lose it for you. So I would start there and kind of see if your market is a little different, or maybe you're in the habit of negotiating your prices. You don't have hey, this is our price period, take it or leave it. If that's something that maybe a sales manager or a sales advisor maybe even has a little bit of latitude on, go ahead and give it to them. But don't be afraid to start there.
Tim?
I mentioned it earlier, we've not had any issues on our install margins. Matter of fact, sometimes I try to get the reps to think a little strategically, but they keep plowing forward and they get where we like them to be at and where their compensation plan rewards them to be at on installs. And our partners on cloud-based access, they tend to have, I think, very reasonable cost structures. Some of them advertise a list rate and then we get a discount off of it. And it's very much in line with our company margin goal. So we're very, very happy about that. And there's some ways to increase it, right? We might go to market. We might price using our cost structure, paying monthly, but we can get an increase on it if we go ahead and pay it all up annually, right? So we might get 12 months for the price of 11 or something like that by paying annual up front and driving our margins up that way as well.
Got it. Very good. And what about like, different partners do it different ways, right? Some just say, hey, it's this per door per month or whatever it might be. And others say, well, it's this much per site and this much per door and all that. Do you just mirror what the manufacturer does, or?
For our largest strategic partner, we usually run off of their MSRP because the discounts off of it are right where we want to be at.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we will go above, kind of like Mike's saying, we go above, particularly if it's a customer with a lot of doors. We get a pretty good discount on more than a dozen doors. So we will go above the MSRP on the subscription there.
Great. Mm-hmm. Jason, anything you see out there?
Yeah, I would say just try to keep the pricing simple, something easy for the customer to understand, versus, complicating things with, something that is new to them and foreign to them, and it's just going to be an objection for them not to move forward. The other piece that I would add is that it seems like some of the more successful companies that have really done well in this space are also adding, a different tier of service. So if you want the platinum level service, it's going to encompass everything: our time, our labor, cost of the devices if we need to replace them. Maybe there's a gold level service that just incorporates labor, but then if the device is out of warranty and it fails, customer has to pay for the device. And then there might be a silver level where it's like, customer, you're going to pay for everything as you go, but here's your in the cloud service.
The word simple is, you all have heard this phrase before, that a confused customer doesn't buy. Well, in this case, it's even greater magnitude, because not only will they not make the decision to move forward if they're confused, they've got something they can sit back on. That's the traditional on-prem system that they're used to doing. No, forget it, I'll just do what we've always done. So, all right, last question. By the way, any input on this from the group? Yes, please.
Silver, gold, platinum, we use something similar, except for not silver, gold, platinum. It's your standard and your VIP. So we do VIP, we add X amount of dollars per widget. And we say, okay, this is your regular, and also with the fee and subscription thing, we say subscription, and it's taken a lot better. So we say, okay, this is your subscription with no VIP protection, and this is your subscription with it. And what we cover is everything, our labor, our parts, service, 24 hours we're available for them if they are a VIP plan. And when the installation is really solid, really great, we end up turning our arm onto a lot more and not having to really do too much more, but the client knows they're protected, so that's worked really well for us.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. When I'm having conversations, not like this, but just sitting around having a cup of coffee or something with integrators, and I get the question, okay, 10 years from now, where are we going to be? And I'm not going to answer that, but what I do know is that the integrators that see the cloud today as simply a conduit to providing other professional services are the ones that are going to be positioned properly. So if you're just thinking about, okay, I'm going to charge this fee to host their access control, that's great today. But if you're not thinking about what other services can I provide, can I print badges, can I do their reports, can I open and close doors all remotely? In a few years from now, you're going to be in trouble, because simply hosting not really going to be that valuable to meaning the integrator's value isn't going to be that great to a customer. But knowing that you're able to provide all these other services are going to be huge. So start thinking about that. That's not a doomsday on next Thursday, but start thinking about it. All right, anything else before we go to our last question? All right, our last question. So, when's an on-prem system a better solution for an end user? Who wants to go first on that one?
Well, we do have some customers that, federal government based, that aren't allowed to be in the cloud. Okay. So you really have no other options except a traditional on-premise system there.
Yeah, and I would say not just government. I mean, there are, to your earlier point, plenty of IT people out there who are like, I am never doing cloud. I've been told that a good number of times. Mm-hmm. I would say don't be terribly shocked if in a couple of years they're like, hey, tell me about this cloud thing. But, but yeah, I mean, some of them are just, no, I can stand up a server, I can do it myself. I've already got a whole bunch of them. I'm never going to do it. I insist on having all of my data locked down in my building, right? Maybe because they know about cyber threats and they are confident in how they're dealing with them, and they don't want to let go of that, even to trust it to a company that's much larger than them or a multi-billion-dollar operation or whatever. Doesn't matter. I know what my security is, and that's it. Period.
They can virtualize a server in 5 minutes.
No.
They can stand one up, be ready to go. Something we cannot do normally, because we have that hardware, we have to have all these other things.
Yeah.
They just roll it out.
Yeah.
Right. It's nice that you guys can say, okay, well, I'll shift over here. We walk away from that, right?
Yeah, we don't like to walk away.
Yeah.
And truthfully, we try to make sure we find the right solution for a customer. So if they are the table pounding, never cloud type, I understand that, right? We want to make sure we take care of a customer and take advantage of an opportunity. If they are embracing the cloud and want to be, heading towards the future, well, God bless them. We want to work with them as well.
Yep. When they're pounding on the table, folks, make sure, obviously you don't want to be the annoying person where they have to say, look, I told you 5 times we're not going cloud. But make sure they know that you provide it. And even get permission. Look, I know you're not moving in that direction, but as things come out in the next several years, is it okay if, maybe we do a lunch and learn, maybe I'll send you articles and stuff like that. Because one day they're going to come back to you. And by the way, it's going to be their idea. Hey, guess what? We can do cloud now. It's my idea. But just don't be the annoying person that doesn't listen, but make sure they know that you provide it. Because one day that's going to, even the highest government agency is probably going to sometime in the future say, we got to put this in the cloud.
Obviously, being the client's own idea was the best thing that could happen.
Why did I say that?
Having it be the client's idea.
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, you told me years ago that
Yeah, don't bring that up.
Yeah.
Just-
No, I mean, you told me years ago you wanted to go cloud and they wouldn't let you. Good. So, Jason, you're dealing all the time. You're selling on-prem, and I'm guessing you sell more on-prem than cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're selling to the marketplace, and the marketplace has more on-prem than cloud. So, why would you go on-prem instead of cloud?
I mean, if it's going to match up with what they are currently used to, what they have existing at other locations, things like that. And a big part of it, believe it or not, is not new customer sales. It's just expansions to existing systems, right? So that system's already in place and they're expanding upon it. And then I think it's the mentality shift of, their view of the total cost of ownership of the on-prem system is, they haven't really been educated on cloud, right? And so it's like, okay, so what are you paying for your IT's architect infrastructure and all this other stuff behind the scenes? They're not accounting those numbers to,
Right.
to what the on-prem access control system is going to cost me.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a big part of that is just not, if they look at the total cost of ownership for an on-prem system and total cost of ownership for a cloud, cloud's not always favorable. It looks like, oh, I might be paying more here for cloud than I am on-prem. Well, that's because you're not taking in some of these other factors and, how would you like to have a 7-figure risk mitigation on a cybersecurity threat, Is your IT taking on that responsibility with your on-prem system? Because we'll take it on with cloud.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Anything that we missed? Anything you're thinking out there? This is why I would go on-prem. All right, how about anything else? Any other open discussion, any questions that y'all have, something that you want to contribute? I'd love to hear ideas. I didn't get my selfie yet, guys.
No, the cloud systems that we've been selling lately, one of the things everybody likes to use their phone.
Likes what?
Likes to use their phone.
Yeah.
And how do I get in? I'm gonna use my phone to get in. So we're basically saying, okay, if you need to do that, then you have to do this.
Nice.
So, because that's what you're doing, this is cloud, whether you believe it or not, it's cloud. So to do that, this is what you have to do.
Yep.
And we've sold something like that. Now, we do have salespeople who say, I ain't doing that. But, all the younger guys, they'd much rather do this than do anything else.
Yeah. What have you found works with some of the not younger guys?
Nothing. I'm one of them, okay, so. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The getting in that first job and they see that it's easy, having one-on-ones with them. There's no, Tim, what I probably said a couple years ago when you listened to me speak was if you have 10 salespeople, 2 are going to embrace it right away. 2 are never going to embrace it. It's the other 6 you got to work on. So it's possible that you have a couple that are never going to embrace it. What else? Any other questions, comments, discussions? Love to hear it. Any voice that's not ours is much more valuable. Bless you.
Bless you.
I do love this group, the ones that are squeezing every drop out of your ESX this year. That's great. You're not running for planes or anything.
Opinions on, you're never gonna do it on-prem, you'll do it sometimes, and how do you feel like that works for you in because I feel like I do it on-prem and it's Because if that's what we're building on, you know, to make the business great, it's difficult for me to say, okay, here it is, and they don't wanna take the VIP, and it's like,
Yeah.
see you later, bye, like that.
So before they answer, they don't have a choice, these two people. It's their company policy, but you can still give a great answer to that. Like, how do you deal with it, right?
Yeah. I joined the company about 7 years ago, and really my primary focus was to help sell more RMR, because we were great at putting systems out, but we weren't great at getting, agreements under contract and having an RMR base. One of the first things we did was started talking to all of our legacy access control customers, and many of them were outdated on the version they were at. And it's just because there was no plan to do it. So we started putting them on a service agreement where, hey, we'll buy your software license, right? We'll buy that license, we'll get it annually. That way you're covered if we need to call into support to get tech support for you. We can do the modernization of the system. And then we started bundling it with service calls to actually modernize it. And most of them landed on one modernization a year. So, with a traditional on-prem system, that might be $1,500, might be $2,000. All kind of depends upon the system, the license, the amount of time involved, and how many service calls they wanted built into it. We started building on, with, I think what you're referring to as your VIP, having a service coverage contract layered on top of that as well. Preventative maintenance visits. So that's how we started attaching RMR to it. With this next generation, the cloud-based, it's just inherent with it. And probably a combination of factors, not excluding our comp plan. Our comp plan was kind of critical to it. We have some guys that are, coin operated. I know Chris says that term's maybe getting to be a bit of a dinosaur term.
There's still some
out there.
There's relevance.
Yeah,
I still care about the money I make, but.
And anyways, it has driven behaviors. So among other things, and they love it. They love it. It's just easier too.
Yeah, let me be clear on that earlier statement. Comp plans absolutely matter, but they don't matter if the boss isn't holding them accountable as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Mike, you gotta walk away from some stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that would be the biggest thing. So if you work for a company that does allow you to sell both, and you only want to sell the one and you kind of want to specialize in it, in our company, that's super easy. We just walk away, and upper management knows that, hey, we are going to walk away from some deals, right? So they factor that into how they manage the sales advisors. If you did a sort of personal policy like that, you at least have other people in your organization you can pass a lead to. So number one, I know nobody likes to do that, but I think you will find that you more than make up for it by how much more you sell in cloud if you at least mentally say, I have no other option. There's no other way I'm going to do this. No, I know it's right for my customer. If I have to tell my customer no, look, we've been talking for on and off, weeks, months, however long the sales cycle is. You said this. Is this true? Yes. You said you need this. You said this would be helpful to you. Go all the basic sales mechanic stuff, go back through it. Like, this is the right answer for you, and I'm not going to sell you anything else. And put your foot down. You'd be amazed how often that works.
Anything else?
For like
Please.
clarity in this room, how many customers do we have that you have to say no to, that we have to say no to?
Not that many.
I could have no to.
Yeah. Well, it's because we already said no, they're not our customers. So.
Well, I mean, I'm just.
Now, to be fair, what y'all are doing is awesome. But when did you start? When did Security Pros start?
2009.
9, okay.
Yeah. So
That was the goal from. So
it wasn't.
you don't have the
Yeah, not 1873 or anything
Right.
like that. Yeah.
And
So
2009 isn't like yesterday. It's a good. It's 1 year older than my company, so that's a good long time. But at the same time, you don't have all the like IPS probably has a ton of legacy on-prem.
right.
We do.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
some of you probably have the same thing.
Yeah. You can't just tell those people to pound sand, right?
Right. Or you could.
You don't want to.
Yeah. All right, we have 1 minute. Anything else?
Chris,
One of our new discussions has been with our people is that, we've got a lot of legacy systems. So now how do, some of them were 10, 12, 15 years old or older. When we started installing camera systems in 1982. So, we have a lot of old stuff out there. So how do we move that? So our sales people will have new opportunities if you just go take them.
Yeah, you've got to be intentional about that or it won't happen.
Right.
They've got to know exactly what you expect and this is what you got to do, or they're just going to keep doing what they do.
Yeah, but when I pull the stick out, bosses get upset.
You have to pull a stick out.
Old school.
Yeah. All right. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to add on the support side of things. I hadn't mentioned it earlier. When I socialized this and introduced this to our sales team, I thought, think about the way we've always done it. And I call it a very linear model where, on a flow chart, right, there's the original equipment manufacturer. And they had a one-way direct relationship to us, right? So box on top has an arrow pointing to box bound beneath, right? Manufacturer to integrator. And then there's a box beneath that with an arrow, right? So it flows kind of very linearly there. Well, what I describe is this is now a triangle. And you've got a relationship with the OEM, with us. You've also got our relationship with the customer, but now the OEM can look into the customer and talk about speeding up support. That's been a real big factor for us here. Old days, hey, you got a tech on site and he's got a problem and he's on his cell phone and he's calling tech support and tech support's going, well, what does it say? And he's telling them what they're saying and seeing and it's relaying and stuff like that. And it's kind of slow and archaic here. Now you call tech support and they log in and they're looking at the exact problem. So talk about speeding up and quality of service. It's really night and day difference.
That's a great point. All right, folks, so all we need you to do is rate the system, and I don't know why they have half of a 4.5. Hopefully you all threw all 5s on there. But I appreciate first of all, being here on a Thursday, but secondly, the engagement and the interaction. So thank you for that. All right, good job, everybody. Thank you, guys.